Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we move on to the next session titled The Vital Role of News Media in Brand Building. And in this session, Alistair McEwan, Senior Vice President, Commercial Development, Asia and ANZ BBC Global News, will be in conversation with Vikram Sakhuja, Group CEO, Media and OOH, Madison Media. Vikram, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Ivan, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Alistair, and very, very warm welcome to you at the BBC Upfront. I don't know whether you should be welcoming me or you, but I hope...
I think it's the other way around, Vikram, isn't it? I should be welcoming you, but thank you.
Yeah, but you are the one in the hot seat today. And I think what we're going to be talking about today is, see these words, the vital role of news media in brand building. Underlined word, vital. So, let's just bash on straight in. To your mind, what is the essential role that news media plays in building brands, which is, say, as distinct from other TV genres like entertainment, sports, movies, whatever else you may have? And how does BBC really stand out within this other news channels?
Well, it's a big question, actually, Vikram, isn't it? I mean, brand building has been around since the beginning of time in advertising, and every medium has a role to play in helping brands find their audience, find their voice, establish themselves. But of course, there are many genres, and news is but one of those. It's a very important genre, of course. But I think the key difference with news is probably the lean-in experience that you get with the news environment versus perhaps in other genres, such as in, whether you're watching a movie or watching sports, it's more of a lean back experience. And that really counts, because I think the essence and the nature of news is really about heightened level of engagement. And what you get within the news environment is our audiences that are consuming that news in a mindset where they are looking to learn, they're looking to onboard facts, they're looking to onboard information. To the second part of your question, really more about how does the BBC stand out within the news genre? Clearly the BBC has been in the news game for an awfully long time, actually, since the start of our beginning when we started as a radio network 90 odd years ago. So we have a legacy in this area that is long, but is based on some fundamental values, and those values are of trust that with our audiences, that we will be trusted to impart the facts, credibility through the way we cover the news, both in terms of our footprint globally, but also the way we cover that news in terms of the fact-based journalism. But critically, and I think this is going to be a theme, I would think, for today, impartiality. We report without fear or favor. We are a non-partisan media. We hold no political bias. We are impartial by our very nature. And I think that's where the BBC really does stand out in the category.
Wonderful. Now, this is a nice sort of segue into the role of BBC I would say in a pretty small English news television kind of business that we have in India. Of course, as you're aware, news channels we've got hundreds of news channels in regional languages, and we've got a fair number of English news channels as well. But the overall advertising market for news channels in English is a little limited. Now, within that, and also the reach of those channels is a bit lower as compared to the regional language ones, of course. And maybe within that, BBC is got probably even more of a niche, but very, very significant presence. So what do you see as BBC's role in the English news genre specifically? And I think you already mentioned the values, so maybe there's a segue coming from there.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Look, I'll sort of come back to this issue of impartiality. And I think the role that we particularly play in the India market is one where we stand on no political grandstanding. There is no particular position we take. We report the facts as we see them. And I think that's very important in a market which is let's be honest, very, very well served, super served, you might say, in news, but both in local language and also more increasingly in English language as well. But within the India market specifically, it's not just about being able to tell that sort of independently impartial story. It's also about finding your audience and finding your voice. Of course, for every audience, there is a service that they will look for. And, you know, we are never going to compete on a scaled basis with some of the larger networks in India. It's just not going to happen. That's not our game plan. That's not what we're looking to achieve. We're looking to really serve the audience that wants to consume international news, that is avaricious for its global events, wants to understand what global events mean from both a worldwide perspective, but also in terms of impacts in India. And I think that's particularly where the BBC plays. But of course, we've also seen that audience grow very, very substantially over the course of the last year, as we've moved into a highly volatile world where we've seen both political change taking place across the globe, but also significant, news events such as the pandemic and a variety of other sensitive news topics that have been breaking out. And that growth in India with our audiences, both across television and in digital, has really given us great confidence that the news has a place in India. And importantly, it has a place for brands who seek an influential, educated and affluent audience that is seeking out that global news service.
So would you like to put a number or a descriptor to the BBC audience in India? So you said that they're the ones who are keen to really pick up the global news and of course with all the rest of the BBC impartiality. So what kind of numbers are we talking about? What is the kind of descriptors that you're talking about, or the kind of people?
Across our digital service, we will be serving about 43 million unique users across the India market. But of course, we also have 8 different language services in India, and so this has been a market that the BBC has been investing into very, very significantly. And over the last 5 years, we've been increasing our output in language services. And India remains incredibly important for the BBC as a market where we want to reach audiences not only in the English language, but also in their vernacular language. And so we're continuing to invest into India to tell those stories both internationally, but also amongst our Indian audiences. On the TV side, our reach will fluctuate. We have a small share of the English language markets that will fluctuate somewhere between 1 to 3. Occasionally, will rise to 5% of the English language markets. And of course, those numbers will ebb and flow on the basis of the total audience base that is rising. Of course, getting an accurate bead on that at the moment, given the lack of bark, is somewhat challenging, as I think all of our colleagues in the industry would attest to.
Wonderful. So right now, how would you see the entire viewership? What do you see as the role of linear TV and the digital formats in the dissemination of news, and specifically BBC? And does the kind of viewership pan out with the advertising split also? Because the sense I'm getting is digital may be more, you may be getting more consumption of news through digital, but does the advertising also play out the same way?
Well, it's interesting. We've done quite a lot of analysis in terms of how our audiences consume advertising via the different medium that we publish and broadcast across. And understanding that relationship and that correlation between the two is absolutely critical. And this comes through a study we did a couple of years ago called Ad Impact, where we measured quite deeply how audiences consume, and then also what that means for brands. What we tend to see with television news is that it brings in audiences for breaking news and bulletins, particularly within the rhythm of their working lives. So people, whether they are turning on the television in the morning or in the evening, based on their daily habits, or if there is a global piece of breaking news, we will see them often turn to the TV. But where digital differs slightly is that it really enables that deeper analysis, and it also enables updated reporting on evolving stories as they're breaking. And that analysis and those updates are really where I think both our mobile web and our app products really make a difference, because it's allowing audiences to connect in different ways with a higher level of frequency, dipping in, dipping out. And actually, it also allows that deeper level of engagement. And what we see is that transform into brand effects for our advertisers is really based around mid to lower funnels. So I think coming back to your initial question about, where also news differentiates from perhaps other genre, where you're looking at kind of mass scale, mass reach distribution platforms, where the digital comes in specifically is about much deeper levels, diving down the marketing funnel into areas of consideration and actually recommendation towards the eventual sort of path to purchase. So actually, it's about combining two. TV will always be, a familiarity and awareness builder at its core, whereas digital actually enables, and particularly with the type of content and commercial content that we can produce with and on behalf of brands, takes people further down the funnel.
And while on the lower part of the funnel, can I drag you into this entire thing about, if we as agencies or clients have to buy advertising on your platform, sometimes we find it's cheaper and more efficient to do it through a programmatic platform than directly through the publisher. Probably may not help you, but how do you really, what is your view of the maybe frenemy status you might be having with the likes of the Googles and the Facebooks and the giants through whom the platforms really work versus directly selling to the clients?
Well, Vikram, I think we should invite you onto the panel that we'll be having later on today about the programmatic supply chain. And
I'm sure Nandini will do a great job on that.
We'll dive deep. We'll dive deeply into that. However, having said that, I think look, programmatic is an efficient automation of buying process. But of course, in programmatic, it doesn't allow for a much deeper level of buying across premium products that we offer and bring to market. So simply put, actually talking to our teams on the ground is a much better way to get the result that you're looking for on behalf of your clients. If we come back to the principle of digital media, though, it is proving to be a highly efficient way of driving towards conversion through that funnel, and we are definitely seeing that, and particularly through content-led approach. I think a lot of brands, and I know this is taking up quite significantly in India, but a lot of brands are now looking to communicate their messaging, their brand messaging, through storytelling, commercial storytelling. And this is something where I think the BBC stands apart from the vast majority of our competition in the quality of the storytelling, the digital storytelling, and the production values that we're able to bring.
Great. So life was going on at in a particular sort of with a particular momentum all the way till last March or Feb, and then of course the last 1 year of the pandemic. Has the pandemic made any fundamental changes in the way consumer behavior has changed, or has it just accelerated the digital adoption that one has got to see?
I think it has changed a lot about the way audiences consume. First thing, and the good thing, is that they're consuming more media, full stop. Level of consumption has gone up very, very significantly, regardless of media platform or individual media outlet. So that's a good thing. We're getting more audiences, more eyeballs, deeper levels of engagement. But within that, the profile of that engagement has definitely shifted. What we saw personally at the BBC was throughout the whole of last year, but within certain sort of waves. It was a bit like a kind of a tsunami of viewership and digital readership coming in waves that would spike around some fairly significant kind of events. And we started out with audiences really coming to learn what was happening. Classic news reporting. It was all about the what. That then kind of moved into the why with explainers, and the way our journalism shifted to analysis and explanation type of journalism. And then we saw that significantly move, and not just within the news environment, but into our features reporting and our features stories, particularly in the how. Audiences were really looking for solutions-based journalism. How do I navigate my daily life? How do I make sense of this? How do I stay safe? How do I manage my career progression in a pandemic environment? So we kind of saw this linear pathway from what to why to how, and that has been really interesting, not only because it's about audiences' behavior, but also how we've been able to kind of take audiences on that journey through what is a traditionally hard news environment into softer, more features-based editorial.
So you do see this becoming a pretty permanent trend, where people are going to move much more from fact-finding to the analysis and the features and how of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a phenomenon that is gear shifted consumers' expectations and their behaviors, and we'll see that for a good while longer.
Okay, let's now get to the heart of what BBC stands for. There's, on one end, then there's of course this entire scourge of fake news that we are seeing, which gives really BBC a great platform. And then we are talking about this entire quantity versus quality debate. The advertisers come back and say, it's my consumers, and it's my consumers. They're seeing it maybe on a very noisy and maybe a sensationalistic platform. But when my ads come, they're able to just tune off, see my ads, and they're okay with it. As against environment, which is fantastic. It's very credible. And my ad also gets placed there. Mind you, my consumers are same in both. So there is a lot of clients that we have who still are okay with the quantity part, rather than really looking at the environment and making that most important. What's your view?
Well, it's a conundrum, isn't it? Particularly for the likes of yourself, caught in the middle of this great debate. Firstly, I think unequivocally everybody would agree that fake news is a total blight on our industry, and it should be eradicated. And reputable organisations across the industry, whether they are in broadcasting, publishing, or indeed advocates and agents of advertisers, need to call it out where it is seen, and need to call out poor behavior where it's not being managed. It's dangerous. It costs lives. We've seen this right across the world, where fake news is literally has resulted in deaths. So it's very important. We've been campaigning very hard on this as a platform, as you will know, and it's one that we will continue to advocate. We've introduced services like fact-based checking, Reality Check, which is a new service that we check all facts, whether they're political statements or whether they are assertions that are made on social media that make their way into the mainstream media. But bring it back to brands and how brands should kind of approach this. My personal view is that brands must understand their individual responsibilities to society and the impacts that occur by supporting platforms that do carry fake news. And I cast no aspersions on any one individual platform. Impartiality and fact-based journalism are absolutely critical. But and this is ultimately what leads to a transfer of trust. And the only thing I would say to brands that are prioritizing short-term gains in terms of scale and reach over longer-term values is that it will come back to bite eventually. It always does. And brand value and brand equity has to be measured in the medium to longer term. and the short-term sort of attitudes that I think drive a lot of financial decision making and a lot of media decision making actually can be quite damaging in the longer term.
Wonderful. So I think you're trying to invoke the conscience in brand advertisers and using that pitch to actually to stay away from unsafe platforms. I hope advertisers do listen to you, because unfortunately they are saying that where my consumers are is where I can be, but I can see that it might come back to bite them in the long run. And I think that's the point you really want to stress on. And
the only other thing, Vikram, I would say is this is a journey. It doesn't start and stop today or tomorrow. This is something that I think everybody has to take their own step forward on. And it doesn't have to be binary either. It doesn't mean to say one has to stop what they were doing yesterday and take on a new path tomorrow. But I think understanding the decisions of why they're being taken and being able to stand up and justify them is important. And I think this is where the BBC comes in as a complementary media choice quite significantly.
Wonderful. No, Alistair, I've really enjoyed talking to you. Unfortunately, our 20 minutes seem to be up. So I think we have to wind up this little conversation at this stage. Thank you so much for being on this platform, and wish you all the best for the rest of the year.
Vikram, lovely chatting with you. Thank you for joining us at the Upfront, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. And stay safe in Sydney.
Thank you.
Bye.